Another day, another 4-star or 2 signing on to play for Baylor football. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen today and every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. It was National Signing Day yesterday, and it doesn't have the same pizzazz that it used to, but a productive day for Baylor nonetheless. Mac Rhodes has paid the fine. At least that's what it sounded like from Brett Yormark's kind of odd statement from the Big 12 office. And should we be backing Mac in the Back Mac campaign? And then finally, coming up later in the show, new kids on the block, Colorado Buffaloes, who come in here chest puffed out as far as it can, just threw a little bit of disrespect Baylor's way. And we'll see that in full effect in late September. But first things first, National Signing Day. Again, not what it used to be because of the early signing period in December, which basically becomes a quasi-national signing day. Baylor obviously had their big day back in, December 20th or 21st, whatever that was. We talked to Jaden Porter about it, and he's excited about that class that's coming in. Well, it just added 2 terrific players yesterday, and they're both 4 stars, depending on what outlets you look at. One of them is kind of a fringe 3-star, 4-star. The other is definitely a 4-star by all the major outlets. And so that's a big, big day for Baylor. And a lot of big programs just don't have much to talk about on National Signing Day, for better or for worse, because most of their kids sign in December. And the reason we still have this February day is one of the reasons is for exactly why Josh Lair signed with Baylor yesterday. So Josh Lair is that 3-star, 4-star, whoever you're looking at, safety who had committed back in the fall to the University of Washington. He had beat out Washington, I should say, had beat out quite a few major programs for his signature, including Texas and LSU, and I think A&M was on his trail as well. And he picked Washington. He liked Kalen DeBoer. He liked the way the staff was up front with him and felt that was his best option towards going towards the pros. And obviously Washington is this great season. They go all the way to the national championship game. They play it in Houston, which ain't that far away from Fort Bend Marshall, where Josh played high school football. And then a few days after their loss in the national championship game, Kalen DeBoer is out. And apparently Alabama was not an option because Josh Lair said he had already signed, and he said, I'd like out of my commitment, my national, my letter of intent to University of Washington. He was granted that. And Baylor was a guy who was in for his services. Baylor was absolutely in the conversation when he ended up picking UW. And so he makes that official yesterday that he is at Baylor instead. Big win for the Bears. He's a safety who is a hard hitter, man. He really is. You watch the highlights of him. A lot of shoulder tackles, so that's not something football guys like me love, but he's laying guys out. That's a way for him to play more physical than the physicality he actually has in his build right now. And in fact, Kalen DeBoer, now Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer, said he's just a missile coming downhill. He loves to come down and attack, not just the passing game, but at the line of scrimmage, and makes a lot of plays in the backfield. I'll say his last 2 seasons in high school at Fort Bend Marshall, 23 tackles for loss. Ooh, doctor. That is a kid who loves to hit. So it sounds a lot like Kendrick Simpkins, the safety they brought in out of the transfer portal from Western Kentucky, the guy I was calling the new Rodney Harrison. A lot of that in there. He was the number 6 safety in all of Texas by Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Baylor was early in on his trail last February. They were one of the first ones to offer him, but I don't think I couldn't find anything on 24/7 that says he made an official visit. But Josh Lair, 4-star guy by some outlets, committed to the national runner-up, and now is joining on at Baylor in the class of 2024. The other one, which is a bit of a different situation as to why he was signing this late on National Signing Day, is Alex Foster, a defensive end from Mississippi. And he actually committed to Baylor last July over the summer. 4-star guy by 24/7 and all the other outlets too, at defensive end, big pass rusher. And he had committed to Baylor, and it looked like one of those guys who was going to sign in the early signing period. And honestly, his star kept rising, and he kind of weighed out his options. I can't blame him for that. UT and Arkansas were really hot on his trail. So was Michigan State. And so he was weighing all of those options, and he makes it official yesterday. He is sticking with his commitment, even after that 3-9 season, even after the offers from some of these other major programs. He is sticking with Baylor. And I think what's a good sign of his loyalty too is his profile picture is actually with Brian Bell, who was the defensive line coach, who left with his brother Sean to go coach the University of Houston. So even with Brian Bell, the guy who recruited him, not there, he still wants to go to Baylor. Big kid, 6'5", 250, and played private school ball in Mississippi. So you see his highlight tapes. A lot of them, he's the biggest guy on the field, and he's not playing nose tackle. He's playing in the 5 technique and rushing the passer, and was pretty good at that. He had 11 sacks and 20 tackles for loss this past season. So top 20 in sacks in Mississippi and top 5 in total tackles. He is just a machine. He was chasing down running backs. So, a big kid who's lined up on the end of the line of scrimmage. You don't usually see those guys tracking guys down in the open field. He had that ability in high school. So pretty nimble guy out there running at 6'5", 250. And we talked about the positive momentum that came from Baylor from junior day. And then obviously coming after that, Demetrius Brisbane signs on as a 4-star, flips his commitment from SMU to Baylor. So a lot of positive momentum on the recruiting trail. And then on a day where you don't expect a lot, I mean, you expect guys to sign on National Signing Day, but again, it's not like what it used to be. You get 2 legit, at worst, high 3-star, 4-star kind of guys in Josh Lair and Alex Foster, and 2 very different ways, right? You had a guy who you recruited hard, missed out on, and situation becomes what it is. He still felt a connection to Baylor and that coaching staff, and still signs on. Had a connection, obviously, with Matt Powledge, who was the defensive coordinator in all terms last year, now still the defensive coordinator, but not the play caller. Josh Lair stays on. And the other side, you get a very different situation in Alex Foster, where you were one of the first ones. In fact, I think the second team to offer him, and he sticks around. He stays with his commitment, just shops his options. It's not a good season for Baylor football, and he ends up sticking around. And those are 2 positions of need. Not saying these guys will step in and play right away this year, but those are absolutely 2 positions of need that you're going to be pretty young in still for this year in terms of safety and defensive end. I'm interested to see when Jackie Marshall comes back this year. This is a quick aside. He lined up in some of that 5 technique in 2022, and I wonder if that's a long-term fit for him on the defensive line. We'll see. He's got kind of a hybrid type of body for that. So good National Signing Day for Baylor. This momentum and the Keenan Hall effect and whatever you want to call it, it's very real right now. I know it's a long way off, and there's question marks with the coaching staff after this year, depending on how the season goes, obviously, but there is very real momentum on the recruiting trail for Baylor, and you can't get momentum on the football field right now. So you can't win games right now. You can't lose games right now, but they're winning off the field, which, look, I'll take those wins where I can get them. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You already know we're in the biggest betting week of the year. going into Super Bowl Sunday, just a few days away from that. I know everyone's starting to get down there and make their picks. If you haven't already, if you haven't been listening to me, now is the time. It's Thursday. Sunday is the big game. Start locking in those picks. There are so many different ways for you to end your season on a W, even when your team isn't going to. So not only can you bet on who's going to win Super Bowl 58, of course, we're all going to do that. But FanDuel also has bets for which players are going to score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and all the prop bets you can think of. This is prop bet Christmas on Super Bowl Sunday. So right now, new customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins, okay? That's $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So we didn't have a lot of time to get to this yesterday. We were, breaking down the game and the win over Texas Tech. But before that, earlier that afternoon, 2 days ago now, the news broke that Mack Rhodes would be fined $25,000 from the Big 12 for his comments on the officiating. First off, I mean, I know that every league does that. I know I'm not in some reality world where he doesn't get fined for that, but it is stupid. It is patently un-American, truly. And it's just another thing where these refs just get so much protection. Like, again, we don't even know if these guys have been suspended or not. And the guy who's getting punished for that horrific officiating performance last Saturday is Mack Rhodes for saying how horrific the officiating was. And again, I mean, they might have already gotten suspended. Who knows? But we'll never hear that announcement. The conference will never announce that. But they're more than happy to announce that one of their member athletic directors is getting fined $25,000 and are more than happy to say how that's just unacceptable in this league. Not that the officiating is unacceptable, but that critiquing horrible officiating is unacceptable. And again, I understand that fine was coming, but he didn't make a huge deal about it, didn't throw a tantrum, said very calmly that that was not good enough for the league that we have, for the effort that our student athletes and our coaches are putting out there, for the money that our fans are paying for. That is not good enough. Now, we did call them an embarrassment, which is true. That was an embarrassment to the league. But it just, it's like that's not the lessons we should be teaching our kids, right? Like, it's just silly, and it's silly to assume that Mack Rhodes should just sit there and just take it. Hate that. He's defending his coach. He's defending his players, and I stand with him 100%. Do I stand with him financially? Well, it's a bit of a conflict of interest being in the media. But you can stop this tyranny. You can show this tyranny who's boss by donating to GXG in increments of $25. So if you get 1,000 people to do it, bang, there's $25,000 right there to pay off the fine and back Mack. I don't say this often, but when it's true, it's true. This is brilliant by Baylor. Brilliant. For an athletic department that we don't always know how much they need from NIL, right? But there's a base out there that is more than happy to donate to it. This is brilliant. Plenty of us as fans can donate it, but that most of us are not big donors. We don't have that kind of money. But we can all rally around something like this and strike while the iron is hot, while we're all still mad about it, and justifiably so, about that officiating that nearly cost Baylor the game on Saturday, to, donate something that's not that expensive. It's less than buying a hat at the Baylor bookstore. And you can donate to that and be a part of this cause and get enough people behind this cause that it can make a substantial financial impact. 25,000. Take that. Even if it's under the veil of, hey, this is going to pay off Mac's fine. Mac paid off the fine, okay. And basically, Brett Yormark said that in his statement when he said, Mac is one. He basically said, Mac's behavior was unacceptable by the standards of our league, but he is one of the best athletic directors in the country. And we really like him and respect him. And we really like the way he handled this process, which means he paid the fine, because the other part of the process is the stuff you're condemning. So he must have paid the fine. So I was pleasantly surprised. I loved that Baylor got behind that and said, hey, this is some bull that happened to us on Saturday. And now they're trying to pull more bull on us right now. Right? And it's just kind of like rallying an angry mob. And then we all donate the money to GXG. So kudos to Baylor. And more importantly, kudos to those of you who donated to that GXG campaign to back Mac. Because I think Mac was 100% in the right, not only with what happened with the refereeing, but the way he handled it too. Again, didn't throw a tantrum, didn't call them out by name like I did. He was measured but stern, and that is not acceptable. And he was absolutely right. And I know I've mentioned this before, but Mac is more a fan than I think a lot of us think. Like, there is a passion burning inside of him. Like, if he were to just be in disguise and be in the stands as a fan one of these days, I think he would be just as rowdy as you or me or Scotty B or T-Rex or any of the great fans out there, or Ashley Hodge sitting down there courtside, giving it to the refs. He would absolutely be just like that. There's really not a big degree of separation in terms of fandom from a lot of us and Mac Rhodes. And I really like the way he handled that. And take that fine any day of the week, especially because, and this isn't a knock, but especially because your coach isn't going to do that. Scott Drew, for better or for worse, no matter how in the right he is, he's not going to do that. And he said all week, you can't get a juicy answer out of him, man. I'll give him that. We knew that of, oh, well, I got to see what I did wrong, and I'll review the tape and this, that, and the other. And this is a great league, and I know the guys out there. He's never going to say a bad word about it. Mac Rhodes will give a good measured approach to it. And look, it's a problem that's not going away. 2 nights ago, we saw the same night that Mac gets this fine and Baylor beats Texas Tech, down in Houston, Kelvin Sampson's ejected from a game when his team is up 20. And Fran Fraschilla said it. Kelvin was proving a point. He lost his mind a little bit, ran down the other end of the court to complain about, it was during Houston, Oklahoma State. The Oak State guy, who looks to be like 7 feet tall, has like a 6'5" guy on him, and he's just pushing him down on the back while he's calling for the ball. Just pushing this guy's back down, gets it, layup, and Kelvin loses it and gets ejected from the game. But he needed to prove that point. And I think Fran went a little far with it by saying it's been too physical in the conference recently. I don't know about that, but it is the most physical league in America. Them in the Big East are not afraid to get physical. And I did mention this on Monday's show. It might be a bit of an adjustment for some referees going from other conferences to this league, and sometimes in the same week, to officiate it fairly and consistently. That's not an excuse, especially on a play like that. But I understand that might be something they would say. It's not a great excuse, but so it's not just Scott Drew. And Kelvin Sampson is in a lot of ways very similar to Scott Drew. He might not have quite as much of the Mr. Rogers persona, but he is a very well-respected coach around the nation at a couple different stops. He is an intense guy, as all these coaches are, and they'll ride the refs. Like, there's nothing wrong with riding the refs during a game. You just can't cross a line. And most of these coaches don't do that. And obviously Scott Drew didn't do that. And Kelvin Sampson did, but it was to prove a point, and point taken. And by the way, who hired Kelvin Sampson at the University of Houston? Mac Rhodes. It all comes back together. And something else that, Mac is a fiery guy. I said that. Something else he is not going to like transpired yesterday. And it's up to his hire and the guy who he's hitching his wagon to, Dave Aranda, to motivate his team through something like this some 7.5 months from now. So Colorado, the Buffaloes, remember them from the Big 12? They got a former NFL guy coaching them now. Name escapes me at the moment. A bit of a brash guy. Anyway, they were the most hyped 4-8 team ever last year. And in fact, the coach, Deion Sanders, that's it. Coach Prime, which you have to call him or else. He was SI's Sportsman of the Year. So that just tells me, when them being at 4-8, that all Baylor needed to do was win one more game, and they had a couple slip through their fingers. If they had just won one more game, Dave Aranda would have been Sportsman of the Year, right? Pathetic. 4-8 Sportsman of the Year. Give me a break. Anyway, they're rejoining the conference. They're coming back to the Big 12 this year. And originally, when the schedule came out last week, they had tabbed an October game against Kansas State as their homecoming game. They had to think about it. And yesterday, they changed their minds. They wanted to change homecoming to a very early date, September 21st, so it can match up with the Baylor Bears coming to town. If that's not bulletin board material, then I don't know what is. And I know there's some faction of fans out there that are saying, reject modernity, embrace tradition. We were everyone's homecoming game for years. This was like the Kevin Steele signature right here. We played in 3 different homecomings every year. I thought as a program we were past that. But 3 losing seasons in 4 years, 3-9 a year ago, and not a lot of people are going to be believing in this team right now, myself included. And then Colorado schedules their homecoming now almost a month earlier to make sure it's against you guys, because that's the win on our schedule. 4-8 Colorado, in theory, shouldn't have many, if any, Sharpie wins on the schedule, but they think you are a Sharpie win on their schedule. If you can't get the team up for this one, drop the sport. It's Jover. It's done. If you can't come out with a fire in your belly, a fire unlike one that we saw all season long from these Bears in 2023, like truly, I mean, I know they won some games, but coming into a game with just a bee in their bonnet, right? We didn't see a lot, if any, of that this past season. If you don't have it when you take the field at Folsom Field in Boulder on September 21st, that makes for another really long season and not a fun one. Shorter than most of your rivals, but a long season. It needs to be circled right now for Baylor. And I don't even, at the end of the day, I understand, of course, fully why Colorado did this. But if you're a Baylor football player or football coach or even a Baylor football fan, you have to take this personally. You have to. They're the new guys to the conference, and they see, these guys stink. Let's move our originally scheduled programming to have all the alumni come back and see us toast Baylor instead. Can't have that. Dave, I need that. I need that posted in the locker room. I need you talking about Colorado's homecoming and all of spring practice. I need that. Because we're thinking it. And boy, that would be a fun away day to go to. I would love to go to Boulder and see them take on Colorado. And I would just love to shove it right in their face and piss all over their homecoming. Would love that. Let's hope these boys love it too. Tomorrow, we're talking about Baylor basketball Kansas preview. We're also going to do a little midseason report card. So get involved in that one. Let me know what you think about these 2 4-stars signing today. Let me know what you think about the homecoming debacle. And Mac Rhodes is fine. And if you contributed to that, leave that down in the comments below. Leave a comment about anything. It really helps the algorithm, truly. I got a lot of crypto people in the comments now. I guess that helps. I'd rather hear from you guys, but hey, whatever. Anyway, we'll be back with that tomorrow with a bit of a Kansas preview and talking about the freshmen a little bit. And we will see you then. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll be back in a flash on Locked On Baylor.